I got a first-hand view of how to build a media company.
What goes through the mind of a journalist when he decides to start a media company of his own?
We all are taught in J schools and in our job you have to be relevant at all times. The girl who literally told us that we helped her crack her IIM entrance test.
So if something touches people's lives, I think half of the motive behind journalism is succeeded. We feel successful because when we touch people's lives in whichever way possible.
There's a time when you feel that you're writing for your audience, not writing for yourself.
There could be a time that you're doing everything right and still not being able to monetize.
Audience building is not just social media. It's not just retweet dal or retweet mil like mil gaya and all that. That's very baseline level.
तो मेरा भाई है, चल साथ में करते हैं.
Don't rely too much on bhaigiri.
Running a media company it's an MBA without CAT. It's probably the hardest examination of your character, your instincts, your personality, management skills.
Execution eats strategy for breakfast every day.
Opportunity to build out what I call the human premium. Humans will have more value because AI, with whatever you feed it, with whatever New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, सब पढ़ा दो AI को, उसमें credibility उतना नहीं होगा जितना humans में है.
Technology will keep coming in and people will keep blaming because status quo is always there. They'll keep blaming that they'll eat up our job.
Hello and welcome to the show Indian Media with Dhiren and Experts. Here we discuss trends and opportunities in the media and entertainment sector that impact careers and businesses. I am your host Dhiren. Today we will discuss how to start a media company. And joining us on the show to answer this question are two journalists who started off their own media companies. Please welcome Pankaj, Molekhi and Venkat Ananth. Incidentally, all three of us have worked with Economic Times. And before we start discussing the topic, Venkat, I'll invite you first to tell us about your career journey and what do you do at present.
So, hi, thanks for having me, Dhiren. First and foremost, I'm a journalist. I will always be one. I started my career as a sports journalist with Hindustan Times back in 2007, and then went on to study in the UK. I came back. It was an amazing time to be there because we had the economic crisis. So I had to come back to India and restart a journalism career. Although I majored in international studies, which is political science. Came back in India freelance for about 4 years before I joined Mint as an intern during the 2014 elections, and then joined Mint right after. I was a buzz editor at Mint, which was to sort of curate and write about stories from around the web. Very relevant stories. This was the age of SEO jacking, as they call it. So all of us had to do it. I also covered a fair deal of the business of sport because that is a area that that was actually my initiation into business journalism. Covering BCCI, IPL, a lot of these these properties before I moved on to the Ken, which obviously was my. It was a pivot from sports to technology, which was great because, as I will most likely tell you in the future part of the story, I got a first-hand view of how to build a media company, which stood out to me when I did my own thing. So Ken was a fairly entrepreneurial stint in the sense that we were literally there from day zero and we had to sort of do things by ourselves, social media, this, that. So all of that went into it. And by that time I was a tech reporter covering large tech, sort of the companies in India. So that would be Facebook, Google, or Meta as it's called, Uber, Amazon. And then I joined the Economic Times in 2018. And I was there for about 3 years. I used to do investigative stories in similar spaces. Besides, obviously, writing on technology policy, used to break stories every now and then. Before I started the Signal, which co-founded the Signal. Actually, I should use that with a few of known faces. I mean, the idea was to obviously to see what flies in the Indian media ecosystem at that stage. At that time, we were obviously in a post-COVID hangover or a COVID hangover. So that's why we started Signal and we raised some capital, and obviously we merged with the core earlier this year. The core being a financial journalism product started by Govindra Yatiraj. And then I left the core. I had some issues, personal issues, health issues. So I left the core, and within 2 weeks, I've turned up as a consultant for Indian Express.
Yeah, congratulations,
So that's
Venkat, on your new job. And
Thank you so much.
For viewers and listeners, Venkat joined his duties today and he's doing the podcast with us first. So thanks, Venkat, for that. And now I'll invite Pankaj, who was my boss at ET, and we did a lot of crazy things. But Pankaj, please tell us about your career journey, how you started off as a journalist and then decided to start your own enterprise.
Thanks for having me here, Dhiren. See, I started thinking of myself as a journalist right from my college days. And when I did my honors in English literature, then I joined Patriot, a socialist newspaper, because that was the basic idea initially to work as an activist and be labeled as a journalist. Soon enough, I joined Then for a brief stint, I actually worked with an NGO also, Development Alternative, and then rejoined journalism, worked for ET, India Today, before I decided that, okay, time has come to hang up my boots. It was taking too much of stress also. That was also one of the reason. So, and then some people got together. Sanjoy Narayan, who's former editor of Hindustan Times, Nardeep Dahiya, former editor First Post. We just got together. We found ourselves a promoter and we launched a site called Lokmarg. So it was more of a Fox Populi kind of a thing where people will generally, and an expert will not talk about subjects, general people will talk about. So I think we have been running it for 6 years. Our promoter has been very kind to give us shares also in the venture, but we still haven't been able to monetize it on its own. So that's my journey. Then I think let's start with the whole of the subject instead of people around.
Sure, sure. My first question to both of you is, what goes through the mind of a journalist when he decides to start a media company of his own? Venkat, would you like to go first?
So when I switched from the Economic Times to a startup, obviously the reason was very clear. I mean, there were audiences which were hungry for news to be given in a form that they like. And I think relevance is something that we all are taught in J schools and in our job, you have to be relevant at all times. But you don't see that a lot in the news media ecosystem today, unfortunately. Because of various reasons. I mean, there are monetary pressures, there are editorial calls which are slightly different. So relevance gets somewhat submerged in the whole ocean of news. So that for me was an opportunity, and that something came out of my. It was something that came out of my own reading experiences. So one of the reasons I signed up to doing the Signal was because I wanted to see if I could replicate my own behavior with the wider audience, which was reading smart, reading very concise content, trying to have a takeaway in every section, and anything you read, you don't just read for the joy of it, or that ephemeral feeling ki yaar enjoy kar raha hu, but thoda there has to be somewhere an element of, okay, this is useful to me. So that is what basically drove me to become an entrepreneur, to take the plunge and see what we could do in that space. And again, we also came at a time when there was too much of information overload. There was this term that I've sort of used, it's called frazzled audience, right? Audiences were like very confused. Doom scrolling was a thing that was common. So for us to build something that meant to people that not that they could consume, but at the same time they found useful. Yeah, like once I left and as a entrepreneur, one of the things you realize is when you leave the project is when you know how much it meant to people. I mean, there was a girl who literally told us that we helped her crack her IM entrance test, which obviously meant a lot more to me than just, okay, yaar, do ad becha, ye becha. The feeling is slightly more there. So for me, the utilitarian aspect of news, of information, was a massive driving factor for me to take the plunge.
How about you, Pankaj? You actually
See, I
moved
would say,
from general newspaper to business newspaper, and now you're back into somewhat general news category.
see, this is first of all, I was never the one who founded this idea, or I was just biding my time, and the time come when Sanjoy suggested that I join this venture. So I was more pushed into it than I myself thought about it. But once I started doing it, I picked up very valuable issues that comes into a venture, running a venture, and then I got more involved with it. And as they say, see, there is one part is utilitarian value, which Venkat was telling us. But there is also sometimes when you read something, you get moved by it because this is what you want to say, but it's coming out of someone else's mouth. So that is also sometimes draws you into a. So this is the kind of journalism that we are doing. So we are asking people to talk about their experiences on certain issues, and then we see that they find resonance in the wider audience, and that is how we are surviving. So the various ways that you can serve news, you can serve views, and still connect with people. So there could be, as they say, it touches people's life. That I am girl, which Venkat was telling about. So if something touches people's lives, I think half of the motive behind journalism is succeeded. We feel successful because when we touch people's lives in whichever way possible. That's the basic part of journalism, the social assimilation instead of alienation. So this working out very well with me. But in the meantime, I've also picked up various issues that very critical to keep a venture going, to keep your head above water level. And it teaches you a lot of things. So we will share it as the conversation moves on and we will on.
Yeah. So when it comes to deciding what product to launch, whether it should be a website, a newsletter, or a video channel, or a newspaper for that matter. So how did you decide which path you will choose? And I remember I really love the Signal also because it introduced using GIFs, and which really spiced up the conversations, the storytelling, and the tools of languages are there, but added a whole new dimensions to it. So how did you go about that part? So when it comes to product innovation, I want to pick your brains on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think what had happened, I think we benefited from what was a wave in newsletters globally. You had the whole morning brew era in the US, you had the whole Robin Hood snacks era in the US, you had the whole skim era in the US, and obviously you look for certain cues that this is working in the market. How about we introduce it to audiences like them? I'm not saying similar audiences, but audiences that maybe think and not look alike, but also read alike. So we tried it, and obviously, I mean, the credit goes to my co-founder Rajneel. I mean, who actually started the Signal before we joined. So Dinesh and I joined much later. He was beta testing it through an audience, and obviously he found model of morning brew, snacks, all of that as a very interesting sort of play. Also, we also have to give Finshots a lot of credit here because they I think pioneered in some way the independent business free newsletter product during the pandemic. They grew exponentially during that time. So obviously we knew that they were growing a certain audience which was hungry for this kind of content, maybe unsatisfied a little with that kind of content also. So we felt that that was an opportunity to just go in and see if we can do the same thing or similar things in a slightly different way. That is what the Signal tried to do. And GIFs for us, it was a very polarizing innovation, if you want to call it that, because a lot of people didn't like it, a lot of people liked it. So finding a balance between what is populist, I mean, like what readers want, and you think adds to the conversation inside a product. Now that's a dilemma, that's a call that we had to take every day or every edition. I mean, sometimes there were GIFs that were called insensitive and all that. We had to face some of the big bats also. So that's fine. But I think for us, choosing newsletters was a very easy kind of a call because I had worked at the Ken, prior, and obviously I had seen certain things that they were doing right, and especially around the fact that they chose newsletters as a medium to deliver news. Uh, which means there was a potential there. Obviously, India, and I think it's a little ironic because India is a more WhatsApp market. They say that, why go email when you can do WhatsApp? But email, there is a certain space you have the joy of opening your inbox in the morning. I don't know if it's a joy or a dread, but the joy in our case, it was more joy of opening your inbox in the morning and just reading through what you enjoy the most. We felt was a great opportunity, and we felt that it is yet to be sort of explored really well. And I mean, obviously now on the other side, now in the larger media ecosystem, I still feel that newsletters are here to stay. I think it will not be a mass product like it's in the US. It won't be a 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, sort of delta. You will have 50,000 people, 500,000 people, maybe a million people who you can serve. But those are people you can have a connect with, a straight away a connect with. So that's where I think the opportunity for newsletters was and continues to be. Obviously, it will evolve a little bit more. So that was an easy call, Dhiren, to go with newsletters. Websites, yes. Again, there's a lot of cost involved in it. So obviously, you have to look at the more for cheaper option when you're a startup, and the most effective way of delivering something while keeping costs low. And we felt newsletters and specifically more Substack was that way to go. And I also felt one thing which I learned over a period of time, that people didn't care about design. We journalists sometimes think a lot about design. We tend to overthink about design a lot. But as a reader, they just want to read. Like white space, there is a font spacing. यार वो हम सोचते हैं, वो हमारे लिए aesthetics है. But for the reader, यार मुझे बस मेरा माल दो सुबह जो मुझे पढ़ना है और पढ़ के निकलना है. So that is what we felt the idea was, and that's why newsletters. And last thing before I hand it over to Pankaj is the fact that I think we felt that newsletters. I think there was an over fetishization of time spent in our industry. Time spent means more ads, means more revenue, means etc etc. That fetishization was good and bad, because on one end you had a clear path to monetization, but on the other end, I mean, folks were just reading like 5% of their content and just shutting the page and moving on to the next page. Session time was lower, right? So we felt that if you're giving in a product where you are engaging the person from end to end, from start to finish, it took about 5 to 7 minutes to sort of read that newsletter. We felt that was of much more value to hook people in, to reel them in, to hold them there, than write something and मतलब कि 2 सेकंड में निकल in
What
an
do you
in an
think,
online
Pankaj?
platform.
Oh, I think
Medium is
Venkat
the
is right.
message. So, what medium is the best medium?
So what I'm saying is basically that Venkat is very right when this is the attention span is reducing over the time. People are no longer interested in long form of reading. Although some people there is very niche market for that too. But largely, if you see, particularly the young people, those who have this habit of scrolling through one site, one news, so that is why also he says that aesthetics is no longer that important. It is only important for those who keep on staying on a site. I mean, those who return to a site. And if you actually go through Google Analytics of any website, mostly your own website, you would see that the average number of time, the average span of time of staying on a news story or a certain page is very little. So within that small point of time, you have to grab that person, grab him by eyeballs. That is where the trick lies also. And you all, of course, you pick up these tricks. Some people use clickbaits, but that doesn't work. I mean, that doesn't work for a long time, and it actually loses credibility of your site. So uses more innovative ways, as Venkat used GIF. So other people can use other things. Keep innovating, keep finding new ways to grab more people. But still, there could be a time that you're doing everything right and still not being able to monetize, or still not being able to do a great site, because see, now you have to use many tech tools like SEOs, promoting your own site, creating your own brand. So you'll have to use a complex mechanism of these tech tools to promote your site, to bring in more viewers. But you keep on picking up these points as you move through the business. And this is what has happened. I've been learning constantly. The best part in my case is that I don't have to work there 24 hours by 7. So I just sit when I am free, when I feel that this is a time when more readers come to my site. So that is the time when I have to promote it. That is the time when I have to change the content. So these things again, it will apply to different websites, different news websites, and all these things will matter. I mean, but as Venkat says, aesthetic is no longer people are trying. Those who come for some kind of utility value. If you're adding up to their knowledge, suppose I want to buy a refrigerator. I go to a tech site, I compare some people. So actually, I'm not worried
Really?
about the kind of designing, the kind of page making that they have done. I just look for the content, that because I have to buy something, I have come to that site for a purpose. So if that purpose is not being served, that purpose is not to look for a good looking site. The purpose of the content that can help me buy that the refrigerator or AC or anything. So those kind of sites which have utility value, so they will have to, they can actually they can and the good looking sites and all, and they can just concentrate
Yeah.
on content.
So when it comes to
Similarly,
really developing a product, and you are making a lot of choices on the fly while developing a product, while doing your stories, what were the toughest choices that you had to make? Because I'm also appreciative of the fact that you are learning a lot about technology, which is from a completely technical point of view. So what were the toughest choices you had to make, because you both shifted from print to online and then to social, if I can say so?
Actually, Dhiren, so my first job, I had a hands-on experience of online, which was like I had to upload articles at Hindustan Times as part of the sports desk. So it was like pretty cool. Back in the day, you felt a little like responsible for the website being up and all that. The choices you make, I mean, obviously, some of the things is you look at things like length. You look at things like, I mean, I think there's a time when you feel that you're writing for your audience, not writing for yourself, which I think is very important. I mean, we journalists sometimes tend to get submerged in our own work, and beyond a point when you start reading any long form story or anything, unless it's really gripping. I mean, beyond like two, maybe the first 1800, 2000 words, you feel like you're writing for yourself. You are the audience. Like, mujhe padna hai ye. So that I think that to strip that completely, and we built a product where I think one of the choices we made very happily so was we back talent. I mean, forget the product side. The product only happens if you have the talent. We went all in on talent. We said, boss, there should be no compromise. I mean, yes, on one hand, we can invest in smart young talent, and we did with podcasts. But at the same time, if you're building a product with an aim to reach at least 1 million subscribers one day, because that was our North Star, you need the kind of people to build it. So you can't just like, go and say, acha, aajao, likhte hai, you're this thing, you just come and write. You need that expertise, because again, where we were operating was at this intersection of curation, insights, value, etc. So you needed people with some reporting experience, some subject matter expertise to just come and say, okay, we'll give you this. Yeah, we write the cutesy stuff, we write it in a very slick way and all, but the content matter is not very disturbed. It is still very relevant. A very economist, like, if we, that's the comparison we often had from people, which I thought was a great honor in itself. But talent was something we decided from day one. The reason we raised money was not to build a fancy website or or anything. It was to back talent. And that's why you saw the quality. It was until the very end, or I don't know where it is now in cold storage, probably until the very end. We stuck to our quality until June 30th, at least I can tell you with that confidence. There was no compromise on that. Like, many people tend to, and it's a legitimate choice. I mean, it's a legitimate call that you have to take, whether you want to get people from J schools, younger talent from J schools, or you want to get experienced people who are bankable, who will pull it off for you at no cost. So we at at and we did that. We went the other way. We went against the grain a little. Our entire journey has been being against the grain. So when the whole world was moving subscription, we went advertising, for example. So we went full in on talent. We were like, okay, we have the money. Let's go and get the best talent possible. So we went and hired people like Roshni Nair, who are phenomenal, writers. They bring a certain edge to the product that I think very few newsletters in the market currently have. Like, if I had a choice right now, I would hire Roshni wherever I am. We hired Soumya, who is by far one of the best media entertainment reporters at this point of time. We hired Jaydeep, who specialized in the business of sport, because we felt that he would give us the edge. It would not just be the vertical, but the person behind the vertical that would actually give us the edge. And I think that's been my philosophy. So I want horses for courses. I don't want to hire a bunch of people and say, okay, you have 2 years, we will put you through. And I have done that also, by the way. We have done that with Manaswini, who was a podcast researcher. She joined us from college. We built her up to a person who could research so well. We had Anup, who joined us in September of last year, and we also built him up to somebody who was very authoritative, when he was writing. And all by learning, by just understanding the tricks of research, by talking, asking questions, etc. So to me, I think talent was, I think, and will be, if I ever do startup, if I ever start anything up in the future, I will still play with talent. I know it's cost, and investors will ask you questions. अरे इस पे क्यों खर्चा किया? कि पढ़ेंगे, जो लोगों को अच्छा लगेगा, you got to spend. And we felt that, and we were paying market and above market, by the way. We were competing at times with Economic Times. We were competing at times with Ken. Now, people may, as I said, may think back and say, you are foolish. But if I did not do that, you would not be talking of the signal in the same way you're talking to me today. Or we would not be having this conversation.
That is absolutely true.
So to
Pankaj,
me,
how do you feel about the trade-offs between technology investment versus talent investment, or versus any kind of experiments that go into developing a product or growing your company?
See, our first of all venture was a little tad different from Venkat's. So I would say that we were relying on a lot of freelancers again, and then cleaning up the copy was our own editorial's job. So we were doing it ourselves. But our issues was the finding the right web developer, finding the right host. For that, we had to change 2-3 times our developers, because there was also transition of the same content on the phone format also. So everybody these days are reading stories on phone. Most of them are. very few people actually read stories or they go to sites on a laptop or on a tablet. So we had to see all three parts in. So we have to strike that balance with the web developer who will change the same content not in an app format but something which is very relevant for the phone user. And we finally brought it down to a level where our concentration was phone, because when analytics report came, we realized that everybody is watching. At least 80%, close to 80% people who were coming to our site, we were coming through phones, the smartphones. So we then started concentrating on the phone layout itself. See, phone has a very limited scope of throwing out your channels. I mean, suppose you have 4, 5, 6 channels in your on your homepage, it look too cluttered. So it has to have that the scrolling kind of a thing. So we had sessions with our web developer, and that was, I think, the most difficult part of our this getting our site rolling. But thankfully, it is over now. I mean, that at least took 2 years of back and forth with changing formats and all. So I would say that if somebody is starting a site or somebody is starting a venture, choose your people well. I mean, not just your own staff, but also your back-end operations, people who are your vendors. So choose them very wisely. And once you have decided on them, then invest on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So has it ever happened that, अरे you're my friend, तू मेरा भाई है, चल साथ में करते हैं? Has that ever happened to any of you?
ये भाईगिरी
Yes.
actually चलती नहीं.
That's literally how this happened.
See,
That's
भाईगिरी
literally
can.
how this happened, actually. How
Okay.
Signal happened.
So that bhaigiri thing, actually sometimes it happens, but sometimes it doesn't work. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just a hit and try thing. Bhaigiri can work, bhaigiri may not work, but yes, we all use our resources. This is Indians all about. That jugaad technology will always remain there. See, if something can be done for free, so we would first prefer that. I mean, that's cutting corners. That always happens. But bhaigiri, again, don't rely too much on bhaigiri.
Whenever I see a new news product coming into the market, I feel like, yeah, this market is already very saturated. There are influencers doing journalism. There is media companies also doing journalism, creating so much of content, and still there is space. And within niche, there is space. Within general news, also there is space. So whether it's a red queen or a blue sky thinking, whatever you think, there would be someone doing something in that space. So in this scenario, what is the recipe for success?
Okay, so I think one is know your audience, know it well. Very simple. Don't aim too high. It's very tempting to think of you going and building this massive venture. You look at US numbers and get very seduced by them and say, you know what? Oh yeah, I'll also build a $75 million venture. I will serve 200 million readers. I mean, I love the New York Times, by the way. I follow their playbook to the T, or tried to follow their playbook to the T, but I will not want to build a New York Times in India. So let's be brutally honest about it. Know your limits, know your audience. And I think for me, what I would suggest and what I would advise people who have the guts to get into this space is that just know your audience. At the end of the day, the more you know your audience, the more you know who you're building for, and that can keep evolving. That need not be a number. We are talking in venture capital. They talk about addressable market, right? I mean, they get very caught on to it. Acha, India is a $1 billion. There are 1.4 billion people in India. 500 million people use WhatsApp. Those are big numbers. Don't chase them. Your addressable market is someone, for me, who is very high intent. Like as Pankaj said, will interact with the product, will interact with the content you offer. Someone who is open to being monetized. Now, how you know that, I don't know, but that's where maybe technology comes in. Someone is going to stick with you no matter what. Like we used to take breaks and people used to ask us, "Are you shutting down?" And then we had to send them reply saying, no, we are just taking a breather. So build loyalty. I think for me, 50,000 loyal readers over a 2-year period is a significant number. And I would want that 50,000 to not to maybe grow into 1,000 into 100,000 cohort. That's how you build this, at least in my view. I mean, you have this whole term of growth hacking and all in modern day. LinkedIn jao, spam AI वगैरह वगैरह. To that's all very quick. It's not investing in audience building. I think audience building is the opportunity. It's not the big number of 500 million or 200. we get very excited by numbers. I don't think you should get excited by numbers. You should know your audience qualitatively. So to me,
Right.
audience building is a massive opportunity. I think people uh, have to do it. I think at some point of time there has to be, and audience building is not just social media. It's not just retweet dal, retweet mil, like mil gaya and all that. That's very baseline level. Interacting with the audience, knowing, for example, if you're serving their needs. Like we had people, for example, who would tell us that 7:30 ko kyun nahi aa raha hai? Why is it coming at 8 o'clock? So so I would ask him, why do you want it half an hour early? He said, because it's a habit. Like I like to read during coffee time. Now I can't serve everybody's coffee time, but at the same time, that gives me some inputs that people actually read me during having coffee. So for me, I think the onus right now is to understand the audience behavior. I think the opportunity that everybody talks about is more content. More content is good content, or good content is more content. For me, the way we approach Signal was behavior. We wanted to understand behavior, reader behavior. I know I'm making it sound like some algorithm here. No, it's all humans behind it. How people read, why people read, why do they read certain things, why do they not read certain things. Those are the kind of opportunities there are to solve. So when and there is no one size fits all, as Pankaj will also tell you this. There's absolutely no one size fits all in this market, and India too big a market to not have opportunities. So at every juncture, there's an opportunity. Like if I go tomorrow and start a sports business product, I know I can monetize it. Why? Because there are IPL franchises, there are academies, there are whatever corporates. So there is something you can do. Point is whether you have the gall to do it or not. That's the only thing that is there. And I think in environment like this, you're looking more towards niche markets, because like niche audiences, because that's how I think you're also going to move towards the monetization. I mean, the path to monetization also becomes better, rather than look at scale and so many views reach, etc. Sorry if I've taken too long. Rather than look at scale and so many views reach, etc.
Pankaj, what do you think? Apart from way into what really works, I also want you to tell or aspiring media entrepreneurs whether quality works or quantity works.
See, Alal, first of all, I'll go back to your question when you said that whenever you see a new product coming and you say, is there space for it? Is there? So I would say definitely there is space for it, because this is an age of TikTok or Facebook Reels. So if you compare your audience with the audience of a Facebook Reel, you would see they will keep moving in from one reel to keep jumping from one reel to another, unless they find something that suits their interest, and then they'll stop. Then the Facebook algorithm will take care of it, that next time that person will be fed through those posts more than other ones. So this is how the backend part of it. So now you have to learn from this TikTok behavior, and as you say, you have to connect with your audience. You'll have to find out what your audience has been, why is this coming back to you. So for that, again, feedback is very important. So we read all the
The
comment
other
section, that
question is
anybody who's commenting.
quality or quantity? The number of stories you do or the kind of stories you do?
I think I was telling you that there is space for it, but you just to be mindful of your audience, and because this is the TikTok age, so
Ah.
people will keep scrolling at the very fast pace. So unless you can click at the right moment, and also be mindful of your audience, keep doing things that is clicking with them and
Yeah.
bringing them back over and over. And
Yeah, I have one question for the faint-hearted. People who are, learning the ropes of journalism and then suddenly their entrepreneurial bug bites them. Do you think, doing a course somewhere like a correspondence, reading a book, something like that helps? Or is it purely learning by doing? There is no other way.
So, Dhiren, I have two things to say on this. One is that it is an MBA in itself. Running a media company it's an MBA without CAT. You don't have to pass CAT. You can just dive into it. But it's probably the hardest examination of your character, your instincts, your personality, management skills. You learn on the job. I think, at least in my case, I can tell you I'm not an MBA. I tend to not use a lot of jargons that people don't understand. Because I'm a journalist, I have to keep my copy jargon free. So therefore, my conversation jargon free. But I think, would I have done better if I had an MBA? Now that's the second question. I've tried to flip your own question. In hindsight, probably yes, because I think what I inexperience also breeds a lack of confidence. Sometimes decision making, which is not very based on on things it's more of instinct. Now, these are things that in hindsight, you would have known a little bit about how to make better decisions. I mean, there is no good bad decision, right? I mean, it's a decision, and then you know if it's good or bad. But you go into things, and then and then you realize, for example, could I have done better with my fundraise? Yes. Would an MBA knowledge would an MBA or a related course, could it have given me a better prep into going into a fundraise market or working with a venture or a non-journalism background? Let me put it that way. For the want of, there are people with better degrees than MBAs who are raising money and doing. Yes, it could have. I mean, my networks would have been different. My opportunities would have been different. But is it a must? I don't think so. I think the fact that I have run a company for 3 years is proof enough that you don't need an MBA. But are you better off with an MBA? Sure. I mean, are you going to be more organized, more structured? Are you going to be a better decision maker with an MBA? Possibly, because you also bring your networks in and all of that, right? We are all blessed with journalists who often complain about low salaries. Let's look at it from that perspective. So we are not in that VC bro ecosystem or from the MBA alumni networks. So yes, now would I have loved to have an IMB degree next to my name? Yeah, man. I mean, why not? But is this as good as that? I would say it's like a module, but it's worth it. Am I a better management professional today than I was 3 years ago? Yes. Minus an MBA degree.
Yeah.
So that's what I would look at it as.
Yeah, a friend of mine keeps telling me, execution eats strategy for breakfast every day. So doing something is certainly much more valuable. Pankaj, what do you feel?
I think he has covered every point on it, and I think there's nothing to add. I think it's just nailed.
See, man, at the end of the day, Dhiren, the first time you look at an Excel sheet, now I did not know how say projections are done because कभी किया नहीं है. मतलब हम लोग we are the people who read other people's projections and say अच्छा ये मतलब ये धंधा होगा कि नहीं. We are not people who do our own projection and feel अच्छा ये करते हैं कुछ करते हैं इसके साथ. So for the first time when I saw that Excel sheet and saw the monthly projection and then breakdown like right to miscellaneous expenses, printer, this, that and all, I was like, wow, is this how half decent to good companies are built? It was an education, boss. And I'll be very honest with you. I was never prepared to be CEO. And for me, see, at the end of the day, we are all well-intentioned people. We're not here to scam. We're not here to do, we're not here to do harakiri. We're not. So I think there are those values that you anchor yourself in that also helps you make better decisions. Like, for example, I can be very proud of this because that's something I will go to town with it. That when we had, when we were not able to raise money, we were very upfront with our employees. We told them that, boss, we cannot do this. We will try our best, but there is a good chance you will not get your salary. And we were very honest. I mean, those are times that you actually look back on and say, boss, would an MBA degree have helped me do this? वो बोलता था कि नहीं यार वो कॉस्ट कटिंग करो एक्सिक्यूट मतलब उनको उड़ा दो. He would look at the Excel sheet and say उड़ा दो. But for us the human side was okay. Can we find a home for the signal so that we can save people's jobs? Because we knew it was going to be a bad market heading into the elections. At least we should be able to give them some succor at a time when the market was not good. They have stood by us, so we need to. Now that for me, you can read as many books, as many courses. Now those are calls that no MBA guy will teach you because it may not be in the best interests of the company. But is it something that I can go to sleep at night and wake up really fine in the morning with? It will suck a little bit. You will feel अच्छा यार मतलब थोड़ा यार had to do something. I'll be honest, we took debt to pay salary. Why? Because we could not see our employees like out. Now, whether is that a great business call? No. Like if you ask me, you should have known when to stop. We didn't. But was it a call that profoundly makes me feel very proud of what we did in the last 6 months and fought our way through this? Yes. Sorry, I'm a little passionate about it, but that's me.
Yeah,
and that's probably what I think gives me the comfort that I did something, I tried, it worked for a while, and then the market was too bad for me to go and do it. But at the same time, I didn't leave people in their lurch.
Especially when journalists who are already struggling with low-paying jobs and all the other kinds of things, it's actually the passion which drives them to join any company or stay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even now, when I speak to my former colleagues, they are very happy. They're very, very happy that we were very different from the rest. I mean, it is easy for people to just say, Acha, you're fired. Acha, we are letting you go. You resign. it is the easiest call to take. The hardest call to take is to stand there and say, we'll fight with you. You fought. And you know what? When I think January of this year, when we were really in the doldrums, they were like, what can we do for you? Do you want us to make calls? Kuch bhi karke tum, I think January, December last year, you want to, we will do it for you. So for us, those are, and to me, if I had, if I had just said कि मैं अभी अपना दुकान बंद कर रहा हूँ and not fought for them during that period to save their jobs, that would, I could not sleep well at night. So for me, those things, now would an MBA degree have taught me that? I don't know. Like I would have done maybe some human resources work at ITC or maybe at Tata where, where they would have just said the only way to sort of, to survive is to by rationalizing costs, which
That's
is
what any
contrary to what,
consultant would also say.
yes, correct.
Yeah, but it's not like a subscription that you can cancel anytime, right?
Correct. And these are people with rents to pay with, I may be sounding like an activist here, but these are people with rents to pay, with families to take care of, with, with whatever expenses. We cannot just suddenly wake up one night and say, oh, hey, we are shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So that's a good combination of compassion and passionate towards your work. So good. I think we all feel good about this.
No, I genuinely, Pankaj, I mean, that is probably like when I talk to people, that is the thing I talk about the most. I don't talk about building a great product. At the end of the day, that gives you a little bit of more joy than, what, मैंने किया, मेरे को Uber से ad आया, Microsoft से ad आया, वो सब ठीक है. But नौकरी बचाना.
So I have just one last question and you can quickly weigh in on this. When we talk about all the AI tools and other services like that, first of all, I don't believe it has a threat to anyone's job. And but to build a company, how does it really help, or does it become an enabler, or does it become another cost center?
Save on not using ChatGPT. That's saving cost. That's $10 a month saved. Think about it that way. Look, I think AI is a reality which we have to accept. So it has been shoved on our faces and we have to accept it. There are goods to it, more bads to it, uglies to it. We will know in time. But what I will also tell you, and this is what I pitched in my second unsuccessful pitch deck or pitch deck, is that this also gives us an opportunity to build out what I call the human premium, which is that humans will have more value. Humans will have more value because AI, with whatever you feed it, with whatever New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, सब पढ़ा दो AI को, उसमें credibility उतना नहीं होगा जितना humans में है. Like making mistakes sometimes would give you joy. कि हाँ ये बना है, मतलब ये mistake किया है बंदे ने. It's embarrassing. It's a blooper. But if you want AI, then why does the New York Times exist? Why does Economic Times exist?
This is actually a very old debate.
Huh?
Right from the time when computers came in, people said, okay,
Exactly.
they will eat up our jobs. And in journalism also, see, proofreaders, they went away first. Sub-editor took over them. Computer took over the spell check. So it is an ongoing process. Technology will keep coming in and people will keep blaming because status quo is always there. They'll keep blaming that they'll eat up our job. Nothing will eat up your job. Actually ended up being more a better person. You brought out an addition at a better time. So you save time, not just cost. But so these things will keep coming. I mean, technology will never stop. It's an ongoing process. You'll have to just be able to ride them. I mean, use it to your own benefit. That's all.
No, I actually agree with Pankaj. I think if we, I mean, is AI a threat? Can content jobs be done by AI? Yes, it will spit out something. You feed it, I want it written like in the Wall Street Journal format. But यार वो बंदा जो लिखता है, वो copy editor जो check करता है Wall Street Journal copies, is he going out of job? No. In fact, he's going to be in more demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of issues like AI. So I think now, do I like using AI? No. I mean, do I personally, like I use Grammarly, some of these tools here and there every now and then. I have tried my hand with ChatGPT, with Gemini, even with Claude and all that. It's fine. It's okay. It's a good. Am I going back to it over and over again when I write a copy? No. Even today, when I put out my Twitter thing about Indian Express, I made a mistake. And did I change it? No. I'm like, okay, this is me. It's me being authentic, me being human. Yeah, and humans make mistakes. AI makes blunders. So you have to be like, you have to look at it from a relative scale. I think we are fine. I agree with Pankaj. Exactly what I wanted to say about the proofreader and, the page maker and all that. Nothing has changed. It will still be there. Now, in certain places, now, can I improve, let's say, can I make jobs like transcription better? I'm a journalist. I'm doing this 2-hour long interview and I want my transcript it will spit out a 70% accurate transcript. वो 30% फिर भी सुन के निकालना पड़ेगा, which is another task in itself. Now, can I, in my dream, have a scenario where we have 100% accurate, transcription? I hope so. And if that happens, that is a promise of AI. So, so much more than it is simplifying my own job. It is not eating into anybody's job. I mean, okay, transcribers abhi India mein, matlab, I don't think is not a big market for it, but, or I don't know, at least from where I see it, it's not. In my case, as somebody who's doing it myself, it can help in translation, which is great. So you can actually replicate English stories into regional languages much faster. Now, is that going to hurt language journalists? Again, no, because humans. You need you check it out on your phones. Like if Google can translate Marathi to English, or English to Marathi very fluently, no, it tries.
So we have tried translations using other software tools and everything, but it's not that great. And which is why I think all these tools will make you more productive, faster in probably what you're doing. But that human supervision will always be required.
So yes, I think human supervision is absolute must at the programmer level and at the editorial level, both.
Yeah.
You don't want an AI to go amok. Now, we are at a very nascent stage in this industry also. I think we're talking about chatbots right now. They're effectively chatbots. Let's also put it in a big context. And I have no doubt that people are putting so much of billions of dollars into it. Google, everybody, Apple, but it's still only come this far. Now think about how much billions will be required to, to take it to the next level. And we have time for that. I don't think we're all losing our jobs. I think, in fact, I feel we'll be much better.
Yeah.
At it.
I think it helps in entrepreneurship. Pankaj, what do you think?
Just
A smaller team with AI, equipped with AI tools will be able to churn out quality content, quantity of content much faster than a full-fledged newsroom.
See, again, you have to be able to use them. I mean, if the person who's using that AI tool is himself good, then he'll extract the best out of it. Otherwise, as the supervision is very necessary. I mean, as it happens with Google Translate also, something can be done very fast, but again, you'll have to go through it. So the person who's sitting on that tool has page making, other things. The person who was sitting on the computer, if he's good, he was good with the pen and pencil also. He was good with the computer editing also. He was good with Word document also. Tomorrow he'll become good with Excel sheet also. So human will have to adopt to these new technologies.
So Dhiren, if I can ask you a question, how many times have you used ChatGPT in the last 2 months? Once, twice?
Like almost every day.
Okay.
But the reason I use it is the search result or recommendations coming from ChatGPT is much better. So I use it as a search engine, not like he draft me something, because I've tried the drafts as well, and the quality is very shambolic. I'm like, it will
exactly. So how many times have I used it in the last 2 months? Zero. Literally zero. Why? Because your instinct is to go to Google. Your instinct, it will not go away. So this whole concept of, search is, yes, Google search is not the greatest right now. It's filled with a lot of junk, irrelevant results. Search and the use cases that come out of, let's say, search for ChatGPT are far lesser. I think you might be a very, very important minority for them right now. Obviously, as they move to search GPT or whatever. But I think since you're not, at least I am, and I can't speak for Pankaj, I think he'll sort of add to it. I have never been driven to try ChatGPT or any of these softwares. Like Microsoft has a design software. I never used it.
For me, it's like a new toy in the market. I just want to play with it.
I think you speak for a million users right now.
Yeah.
So in journalism, if you ask me, I think I cannot become a better reporter. So shoe leather people, going to ground, talking to people, interviewing people. That's the craft, right? I mean, that's what we want to do. That's why we come into this industry for. Will not change. Editing, maybe to some extent, maybe the grammaticals will be taken over by a alert system like a Grammarly or whatever. Not a problem, as long as you said, there is some adult supervision, human supervision. But beyond that, nothing, man. Content industry, I think the content industry has more to worry about than actual journalists, like people who actually do reporting. I mean, I'm not, I want to classify that
will always be at that cutting edge of breaking a story and analyzing it firsthand before ChatGPT could figure out what is happening with it.
Exactly, because by that time you do that, the data would not be with the algorithm or with the AI. You are the you're the ek to gatherer and the purveyor of the news. So ChatGPT will only be able to take it after you've published it because it needs, the data in its ingest, right? अभी data हम ही create कर रहे हैं, हम information create कर रहे हैं as journalists. If we break a story, yeah. So for me, I think journalism has a lot of problems, but I don't think it's a lot is one of it right now, or at least at this point of time. I want to add something maybe now since we spoke about it, just if I can take 5 minutes, talent is a problem. Now, talent is something that we should all be working our butts off to solve in this industry. And that is something that I feel, back in my day, like when I speak of it as if it's some 40 years ago, it's not. It's just like 2 decades ago, and I'm a 9/11 guy. I got into journalism actually because of 9/11. One of the biggest reasons was 9/11. I saw the news event and I was blown. Like, kya hua hai? And I want to know more, right? So I think talent is a problem. And talent is a problem that is actually worth solving if we want to keep this going and going and going. Because there are J school kids who are coming out, who are straight away going into YouTube, Instagram, wahan banayenge, hum creator banenge, which is fine, which I think is a great thing. They're looking at, they're looking beyond traditional structures as well. But talent, I think there has to be a concerted effort. Otherwise, otherwise you can see interventions like ChatGPT, AI and all come in. As long as we are not able to build talent, which is a slight contradiction of what I said earlier about, but that was my choice that I made as an entrepreneur. But we have as a concerted effort to build talent, get young people excited about journalism again. Right? Get them wanting to write news, wanting to be in the thick of it, as they say, wanting to go to the spots, wanting to go to the hinterlands, wanting to talk to people, wanting to do it. It's easier said than done. That aspirational part about journalism, what we felt at least. None of us wanted to come. I certainly differ from Pankaj here, where he said he started off as an activist. I did not come to reform society or anything. I just came to inform people. That's all. That's my job. But in the process, of course, you have impact, right? You want to create impact. Today, we don't see that.
And
Everybody wants to
admissions
become.
in J schools are dropping. In Bangalore, Comets
Yes.
and IIJNN closed down. And in
Exactly.
other premier institutes for journalism like IIMC, there are spot admissions going on in Denkanal campus. And that's the
Correct.
second biggest campus. I don't know what's happening in the other campuses.
Delhi campus, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think that gap that you have right now, there is a gap. And there are people moving away from journalism. They see, there are people coming out of college, straight out of college, J school, whatever degree, jo bhi ho, would-be journalists are saying, okay, I am able to earn maybe two, 3 times more than what a entry-level journalism job will give me at a content marketer. Because skills I have. I can write well, I can edit well, I can shoot well, I can talk well. Why will I not take it? So that is the more, I think, scary part for me, that the assembly line of good reporters, young reporters, there are obviously going to be exceptions. I'm talking about the 4 out of 10 case here. 6 may be really good, but that 4 not being there is concern. And obviously this has also to do with salaries. This also has to do with the growth of the industry, etc., etc. So that is where I think new media.
Plus the risk to journalists, that's a very evident factor. I think
Yes,
Pankaj would agree with me. In the past elections
Yes.
and in the run-up to elections, we have seen so many being imprisoned. And if it's not only imprisoned, you send a legal notice and the entire family is all alert. Pankaj, you want to weigh in on this, on why the issues with young generation and joining profession of journalism?
I've been teaching in university as a guest faculty. I'm teaching MA students in journalism. So I would say that MA students is slightly more serious than the good students of journalism. The thing I saw is that some of them have already realized that journalism doesn't give you much money. They have decided that after 5 years of doing journalism, they'll switch to PR. There's more
Correct.
money. They already know this. The path already, they've already decided. They're so smart. Second thing is, those who are still there for journalism, they have been looking for the perks of a journalist. They still think that to be able to cover an Olympic will be their high point. So they just want to become a sports journalist so that they can go free of cost, at the cost of the company, cover Olympics, watch all the sports, add a medal to their chest, and then come back. Most of them are there only for these small perks that journalism offers. Let's see, journalism offers a lot of perks in the sense that today you're speaking to a rickshawala and sitting on the bench having tea with him, and next day you might be attending a corporate event at a five-star hotel. And so this kind of a varied experience in your life that they're offered by this. Talking to these young people, most of them are actually, they want to become barkha Dutt, flash themselves on TV, become some kind of mini celebrities. So this is what their idea of journalism right now is. So either they're looking for perks or looking for, none of them I could speak to was somebody who would say that I want to connect to people. See, as you said, talking to people, go to the hinterlands. Has anybody been there? I mean, when in 2014 I was covering this general election, and we were going through the UP parts. So there was so much to learn. I mean, more than I could give to journalism, journalism gave it to me. I mean, so I feel indebted by this profession. So, young people, although they are very clear about what they have to do, they still do not have that passion, which Venkat said that I came here for the passion. So, but maybe
I
let's
think
see. Maybe
it's
journalism will
also
change
a
them.
part where people usually the passionate journalists join the profession because of some lived experience, some injustice that has happened to him or they have witnessed, and they want to change it, and that is what brings to them to the career, and also
Yeah.
keeps them there.
No, Dhiren, and I agree with Pankaj. I mean, like, just seeing an astounding number of journalists just drop out of the profession in India. You said risks, very legitimate. It's not I mean, it's relatively safe, but I can sit here and say it from an ivory tower in WeWork Bangalore, not in Gadchiroli or somewhere. It's yeah, there are risks. There is no guarantee that you will make it, especially with the salaries you get. I mean, obviously, there is no incentive anymore because of various conditions that you have in this country, which I don't want to spell out. It's disincentive. It's a disincentive. There is no incentive for people to come in. Earlier, Pankaj, maybe I'm of that vintage in this regard. Earlier, bylines were so sacred. Like, matlab, it was such a big deal. I mean, to get that because you had to fight for it. You had to jostle, and you didn't even know if you will get the byline or there'll be some HT correspondent. Matlab, the weight, it will be decided by your editor. Now तो कोई नहीं है. Now तो LinkedIn में कुछ लिख दो. I mean, I sound like one uncle right now, but LinkedIn में Twitter पे डाल दो, एक उसका thread बना दो, AI लिखा, मैं लिखा, पता नहीं, viral हो गया. That's your byline, which is fine. Which I mean, I don't want to be condescending here. It's perfectly fine, but it just like sort of feels, हम क्या कर रहे थे? So it's that, yeah. So to me, I mean, look, I'm passionate about it, but I'm also realistic. I'm also very pragmatic. I know why these kids are not coming into this space because there is nothing left for them to come here. I mean, it's better to be a Instagram reel maker or a influencer or a yeah, वहाँ पैसे हैं.
Yeah, they're anyway getting the brand deals and government recognition,
Brand
awards
deals,
and fame.
yeah, because you're using your skills there. Right? Here you are toiling to get that one byline and you're not sure, what will be the consequences of writing the story. क्या मेरे को फोन आएगा, क्या मतलब all those things are there. Like, will I be trolled, will I be abused? Like, you are already second guessing your response before you write the story or you go out and report. So there are, I mean, obviously this is a newer environment, social media. We had, we were in at least I was in the infancy of that phenomenon when it came. I got flack for a couple of stories I wrote, but that's fine. It's part of the game. But obviously, and I can understand why people may not want to go into this space because it's a slightly different atmosphere.
I
And
think
to me,
the risk, the rewards, or the repercussions of committing any kind of thing, those things remain the same. Only the frequency and the cycle in which it happens has changed.
And incentives, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, man. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to this conversation because I feel if you're going to have more and more people listening to this and like engaging with this kind of content, I think we need to get people excited about why we are talking about this in the first place.
Yes.
I think for them, it has to be at least for me, it has to be, there has a sense of, I wouldn't say purpose, but if the pool doesn't grow, the industry doesn't grow. We will still be the same people. Pankaj and I will be talking after 10 years, having similar conversations, saying why there is a talent problem, and there will be a talent problem.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure the audiences listening to it will find it some food for thought there. Someone may find a snack, someone may find a buffet.